This is Focus, an in-depth program that deals with current issues in our daily lives. I am Shivani. In this edition, the lens focuses on developments within the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security. Anika Edwards spoke with Honorable Jennifer Webster, Minister of Human Services and Social Security, who addressed the welfare of children, the progress being made for the elderly, and her push for women to play a greater role in the business sector.
Good day, Minister.
Good day.
One of the areas you're passionate about is child abuse, and I know you gave your stamp of approval on the TEL scheme that gives the abuser the power to finger their abusers. Could you give us an update on that campaign?
Yes. First, thank you for having me on your program, and I'd like to say that since we launched the TEL campaign in November last year, and you might be aware that that campaign really is meant to sensitize our young boys and girls about the need to report acts of sexual abuse perpetrated against them, and to have those acts reported, those incidents reported. And since then, the NGO that has been working closely with the Child Care and Protection Agency, ChildLink, has been working, conducting training with teachers and so on in schools. However, we are still awaiting the information, the documents, pamphlets, and books and so on that are being published for dissemination in the schools. Those documents are still at the printer. So as soon as the printers are done, we will roll it out in such a way that the information is disseminated throughout our schools countrywide.
So, but you're optimistic that it's going to be very effective? Yes,
it's going to be very effective because you have to use the school mechanism to deal with, that's the best mechanism to deal with our young boys and girls in order to sensitize them and to educate them and to make them become more aware of what is right and what is wrong.
Last year, 715 reported cases of sexual abuse, but you didn't mention physical abuse. Could you give us that figure?
Well, actually, last year, in terms of physical abuse, there were 731 cases of physical abuse reported to the Child Care and Protection Agency, and of that 731 cases reported, we had 359 cases of girls and 359 cases for boys and 342 cases for girls. And you might be interested to know some of the categories. Let's take, for example, girls between the ages of 0 to 3 years. We had about 38 cases. For 4 to 7, we had about 77 cases. 8 to 13, we had 141 cases. And between the ages of 14 and 18, there were 86 cases.
Is this an alarming figure compared to the previous years?
Well, I think we've seen some increase in the numbers. And I think for 2013, the ministry will, during the second half of the year, after the passage of the national budget, embark upon a national campaign on abuse, countrywide campaign, because there is need to work within communities and to sensitize parents and children about this whole issue
of physical abuse.
Yes. Abuse in itself for children has a very traumatic effect, and children do suffer within, and that is why a number of them have had to be counseled over a period of time, because it does have life-lasting impact upon them mentally. And I think once the abuse is discovered, you have to work with that child to help them to arise from that particular situation and to overcome it. And at the same time, also to build their self-esteem, which is most important.
Any recent success story?
Well, I would say yes. There are some children who I think have, over time, they have improved both academically and mentally in terms of being able to concentrate and to look more towards things that they would like to do in their life.
What about the perpetrators?
Well, in many cases, a number of the reported cases that the Child Care and Protection Agency has investigated, many of those cases have been referred to the Guyana Police Force for follow-up action, and in some cases, some of the perpetrators have been charged.
Oh, well, that's good. Several companies, as beyond children, several companies have stepped up to the plate in terms of assisting children, and I must say Digicel is one such company with the investing $10 million in the Mahaika Children's Home. Can you tell us when that will be completed?
Well, first of all, let me say the investment is not $10 million. It is a multi-million-dollar facility. And if you were to look at it, you'll realize it's not 10 million. And I will say that it is a very huge investment. And that facility is meant to be the first of its kind here in Guyana. And it is also meant to provide an upgrade in the current standards that we have available here in Guyana for children's homes. And when I say that, I mean that in terms of having modern facilities, common recreational spaces, rooms for the children to be able to do their homework, rooms for recreational purposes, dining facilities, a library, a room for training for computer and so on. And we do hope at some point in time to have some extracurricular activities, because there will be space to accommodate that, such as to introduce music and dance as extracurricular activities for those children there, so that the primary objective being to help them to become more rounded and to be able to be reintegrated back into society after they would have passed a certain age, the age of 17.
Any plans to have any more homes around the country?
Yes, we are looking at having the services decentralized, yes.
And what about other companies? Have they approached the ministry to, in indicating their interest to be part of other programs?
Not so far. But I do plan to engage the private sector commission at the level of the commission at some point in time to bring them up to date with some of the plans and programs of the ministry, and because I feel it is important that the private sector come on board, because I think we have to pay attention to some of the social issues within our society. And of course, our human resources are the country's most important asset. And therefore, the development of our people should be utmost priority. And the private sector more so, because of being the engine of growth and moving with industry, should be able to come on board and to try to have as part of their programs some social and corporate responsibility to working and to doing things to improve the lives of citizens.
I'm glad you say that the people, they are the backbone of the country, because I want to touch on the elderly. I know the ministry and government, of course, they have been doing, trying their best to improve the lives of the elderly. What are some of the plans from the ministry's point of view for this year?
Okay, well, first of all, let me say that you know that the Vienna Plan of Action really requires all countries to have incorporated into their national plans and programs programs to support the aging population, and more so especially the elderly persons. And quite recently, during last year, Cabinet had appointed the National Commission on the Elderly. And that commission commenced its work in July 2012. And it is chaired by retired Justice Trotman. And it comprises of 11 members. And those members are persons from faith-based organizations. We have health professionals, retired sociologists and healthcare personnel, and retired public officers who form part of that national commission. And the commission has met on a number of occasions, and greater emphasis is being placed this year on public education awareness programs going out into the regions. And actually the commission intends to meet with the regional social services committees within the 10 administrative regions. And we are looking at developing operating standards for all homes and institutions throughout the country, so that we are looking at possibly having some amount of regulations put in place, so that the homes would be required to become compliant with the standards once they're in place. And it will also entail some amount of licensing, so that every year they will have to renew their licenses once we go in that direction. And I think the whole aim of this is to improve the quality of care and services provided to our elderly persons within Guyana. And also to look at the whole issue of improving the quality of care as it relates to the caregivers, those persons who are employed within those homes. And the Commission also plans to undertake training programs to improve the quality of persons, the care provided.
What do you see needs to be improved?
Well, first of all, let me say that we do need to have more resident care and medical facilities provided to the homes, because some of the persons who reside in those homes are what we call shut-ins. So to have more doctors visit the homes and visit the residents, because some of them are unable to go to seek medical attention. I think that's one area, having medical personnel visit. At the Palms, that is done. But in some of the private homes, I'm not sure that is the case.
Okay. Well, Minister, over the past decade or so, the role of the woman has evolved. What has impressed you most about the women in Guyana?
Well, I think women in Guyana, first of all, I would say over the past 40 years have achieved a lot. Because there was a time in Guyana when women, the majority of women in those days were unable to have to participate in various forms in our economy, in the Guyanese society. And I think under the convention that the CEDAW Convention, which deals with the elimination and discrimination of all forms against women, I think Guyana has moved leaps and bounds over the past years, in terms of programs and the development of our women. We have women in all spheres of life now in Guyana, women in politics, women holding high offices in our country, women in business, in the public sector, and not to forget our grassroots women. I think a lot of those women have been able to benefit from training programs and to build their self-esteem, and some of them have even ventured out into becoming small entrepreneurs in business in various fields, and many of them have been able to improve their quality of life. But I still feel that there is greater need still for us to work on improving the participation of women within our economy. In some private sector companies in Guyana, whilst women are employed there, it is quite noticeable that there are not many women who hold positions on, like, the board of directors of some of our top companies. And I think it is one area of concern. I think that perhaps we need to pay attention to, because there are many good and strong and dedicated women out there, professional women, who have a lot to offer towards the development of our country.
And for this year, what does the ministry intend to do about that?
Well, this year, the ministry intends to up the ante, I would say. And because we do have to meet certain obligations under the CEDAW. And one of the areas that we intend to look at is to work to perhaps come up with some more assistance to women in the cottage industry. And, through the Women of Worth program, a number of single women have been able to access loans for microcredit. And we plan to look at how we can further expand and improve upon what currently exists, and to try to work with those women and to provide training, to partner with other NGOs like Emprotech to help women in microenterprise to be able to understand how to make their businesses financially viable, and so that they would be able to expand, and to help them, those who are in the manufacturing sector, provide them with opportunities to be able to access markets for their produce.
So a committee will be set up to
Well, we do have the Women's Affairs Bureau. So this year I intend that the Women's Affairs Bureau will have to be much more actively involved in working closer with other agencies. And we are going to be formulating programs so that our women would become more actively involved. And it's all aimed to further empower our women and to improve their quality of life, which is most important. And for women to be able to be dependent upon themselves.
Don't you think the men will be a bit jealous?
Well, I think that there are many single parent women, and they do need support. And I think as a government we are committed to improving the quality of life of our people. And more so, and this is with all due respect to our men out there who might be watching the program, we do have to do whatever, because it is a requirement to ensure that our women reach a desired level of independence. And the CEDAW clearly articulates on the various articles of that convention what member countries who have signed onto the convention are required to do as it relates to gender equality and improving the quality of life of women and ensuring that there is no discrimination against women. Before we move off from that, I will also say that this year for International Women's Day, it's quite interesting that the theme this year is the gender agenda and gaining momentum. And, that theme says a lot, because basically it is saying that we need to do a lot more, become more innovative as it relates to our women, and what policies and programs we formulate to improve their quality of life. And I think for this year, one of the things that I would like to have during the week of activities for International Women's Day is to have a symposium with women from all walks of life, and to bring women together and to have consultations and have women speak about where they would like to see women in Guyana, areas that they think women in Guyana can contribute more meaningful in Guyana. And I think the symposium is one way of having everyone have a right, have a say, and have greater participation.
It would be interesting to see if we have another female president as well.
Well, you never know. You never know, because today anything is possible. Yes.
So, Minister, what are the plans, some of your other plans for 2013?
Okay, well, for 2013, let me say that the Child Care and Protection Agency this year, they plan to continue the foster care program. We will also be working on the early childhood development policies, because we've gotten approval for that, and that will entail working to have the licensing and registration of all daycare facilities in Guyana done, and also training for those persons who are employed within those daycare facilities, aimed at upgrading the standards and the quality of care provided. Very recently, when Guyana attended the 52nd session of the Rights of the Child, which was held recently in Geneva, there were concerns raised by members of the committee about helping women with greater access to daycare services. And it was felt that we needed to provide more services, because a number of women, single parents, need access to those services. And right now, daycare facilities are only operational within certain hours of the daytime.
Okay.
And whether there would be need for us to perhaps have those facilities available maybe on a 24-hour basis, so that women who have to work in the nights and who have children, whose children should not really be left unattended, would be able to access those services. So it is one of the areas that we will be looking at.
I don't want to put you in the spot, Minister, but is this going to be something that will be established or formulated by the end of the year?
Well, a lot of work has been done on it, but I would say that all things are possible, and we look forward to having that become a reality at some point in time.
Okay. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and it was very informative. Thank you so much, Minister.
Thank you, and it was a pleasure being here.
Okay.
Do join us again for another edition of Focus. Until then, goodbye.